Welcome back. I'm now joined by Matthew Warren from our business desk. Hello again, Matthew. Now, it's an important day for Spain as it's presenting a new budget.
Yes, that's right. And as we've seen in the news there, we've already seen protesters out again for a second night in Spain. And the inbox of Mariano Rajoy, the Prime Minister, is getting ever fuller as he deals with these various things. Today, we have, as you said, the budget for 2013. That's expected to include more savings of up to around 40 billion euros. Spain is also publishing today the results of an audit of its banks. The banks, of course, have been a huge problem for Spain. They've already said they would need a bailout of up to 100 billion euros. Perhaps the figure will be closer to 60 billion euros. We'll find that out as well later today. And of course, leaders of the country's biggest economic region, Catalonia, they are also demanding separation. So plenty there for Mariano Rajoy to be dealing with.
And Spain's borrowing costs are rising again.
That's right. Well, investors have been waiting to see whether Spain is going to ask for a full bailout, because it's at that point that the European Central Bank says it will then step in and help buy the bonds of Spain, which would bring down these borrowing costs. But in the meantime, the borrowing costs, which did initially fall, and we can see this from here that they did that drop, but they've just started picking up again, just going over 6%. Well, it wasn't helped by figures earlier this week either that said that Spain will miss its public deficit target of 6.3% this year.
Now, France, too, obviously affected by the Eurozone debt crisis, and unemployment here has reached a significant milestone.
Yes, as expected, it's crossed this 3 million mark for mainland France, and it's the 13th month in a row that the total has gone up, and it's particularly older people who are being hit by the worsening job market.
France's dole queues aren't getting any shorter. In August, almost 24,000 people joined the unemployment rolls, pushing the number of job seekers above the 3 million mark for the first time since 1999. The figure has gone up by 1 million over the last 5 years.
The 3 million unemployed face despair and great struggles. But the figure is the result of previous policies. They are the same 3 million unemployed we found when we took office, and it's one of the reasons why the French people decided to pick a new president.
Among those worst hit, older workers. The unemployment rate among the over 50s went up by 1.7% in August. Women have also been badly affected, with the rate up by 1.2% last month. Around 1.5 million French women are now unemployed. As part of the government's efforts to reverse the trend, it's concentrating on training and professional development programmes, including 150,000 apprenticeships for young people who leave education with little or no qualification. The unemployment rate for that group is over 40%. But some economists doubt it will be possible to make an impact on unemployment while growth is stalled.
Unemployment can only go down when growth is over 1.5%. Every year, there are 150,000 people coming onto the job market, so you have to create at least that many jobs before unemployment can start to go down. As long as we're far from that goal of 1.5%, unemployment will go up.
Adding to the woes is the news that some of France's biggest companies, like Peugeot or the pharmaceutical giant Sanofi, are planning major redundancies over the coming months.
How are the markets looking, Matthew?
Well, these worries over Spain and, news like that about France have been dampening sentiment in Europe, at least. But in Asia, they've been managing to make a few gains today, apart from the Nikkei slipping slightly there. Over in the US, Wall Street closed, though, down on the day. Worries over the Eurozone crisis causing some problems there. Well, now let's get some more of the day's other news and further disruptions to the mining industry in South Africa. Anglo Gold Ashanti said its production has been shut down by strikes. 32% of the company's gold production has been halted. Trouble in the industry started at a Lonmin platinum mine in August. It's now spread to several other big mining companies.
The US is lifting its import ban on Burma. The announcement follows the resumption of diplomatic relations. It's the last trade barrier to be scrapped, but is largely symbolic. Before the ban in 2003, the small amount of trade was limited to hardwood, gems and garments.
And Twitter says it won't be following Facebook by floating on the stock market. The boss of the messaging site says he's focusing on growing users and rolling out advertising. Dick Costolo said that Facebook's problematic flotation in May did not affect his thinking.
Now it's the opening day of the Paris Motor Show, but one country isn't getting a very warm welcome here.
No. Now, France's Industrial Development Minister, Arnaud Montebourg, has called on French consumers to boycott cars from South Korea. Now, that includes brands like Kia and Hyundai. Now, the reason? Well, Montebourg says that car makers there treat their workers unfairly and that buyers in France should think twice before splashing out on their vehicles.
Boycotting South Korean cars, a matter of economic patriotism for France's Industrial Development Minister. Arnaud Montebourg accused the car makers of social dumping and unfair competition.
Hyundai and Kia cars are sold using workers who work 12 hours a day and who aren't paid a salary or granted the social rights guaranteed by the European Union. So I want European and French citizens to think twice before buying cars that are made using cut-price social rights.
Yet the South Korean company's bosses were quick to brand Montebourg's remarks as inaccurate. The director of Hyundai's French branch said working conditions at its factories were similar at sites used by Renault and Peugeot, France's flagship car makers.
I find it hard to understand how we can be accused of social dumping. Our factories are in the same places as those used by Peugeot and Renault in Turkey and the Czech Republic.
Montebourg's comments about working hours at Hyundai factories were also called into doubt. After a workers' strike in South Korea this summer, shifts at the country's factories were cut from 10 hours a day to only 9. In France, consumers also stood up for the brand.
Most of the parts used for French cars are made in Poland or Romania, so where's the problem?
The Hyundai Kia group has only a small share of the French car market, yet sales of the company's vehicles have picked up speed, jumping by 30% in only a year.
Now we're going to stay in France, Matthew, and we've got one of the country's biggest companies hitting out at a planned new tax on wealthy people.
That's right, and that tax is the 75% tax on people earning more than €1 million, which we'll be getting more details of tomorrow, actually, when the French announce details of their budget. But there's been a lot of controversy about this tax, and now it's coming from Jean-Paul Agon. He's the boss of L'Oréal, one of France's biggest companies. He says that the tax will make it almost impossible to hire top talent to come to France. Now, the interesting thing with Jean-Paul Agon is actually he was one of 16 executives and wealthy people here in France who signed a letter last year saying that, in fact, taxes should be increased on wealthy people to help France. But when he was asked about his commitment back then, he said that he hadn't expected the tax to be quite as high as the 75% that's envisaged.
Fair enough, I suppose. Now, moving on to some good news for fans of American football.
Yes. Now, the National Football League in the US has been hit by a labour dispute with its referees, but that is now over, as we can see here. That was announced on the website of the NFL today. That means referees can go back to work this week. Now, why is that important? Well, what's been happening is replacement referees have been called in to some of these matches, and that's been causing all sorts of problems. I can tell you about one game. I'm sure you're aware of this one, Claire, already. A game between, I think, your favourite team, the Green Bay Packers, and the Seattle Seahawks. You can tell I really know this sport, can't you? The Seahawks were awarded a game-winning touchdown, despite replays that showed, in fact, that the Green Bay defenseman had made an interception. You see, I've said all these words as if I know exactly what they mean, but fans were in uproar over that. So they will be very happy to see these referees back at work, I'm sure.
I love how candid you're being, Matthew. Maybe we'll find out a little bit more about it from Dan Levy in the sports this evening.
We can only hope so.
Thank you very much for that look at the day's business news, and thank you for watching. Do stay tuned to France 24.